You're like a ninja.
That's racist.
What? Oh, no, I didn't mean like...
Come on.
Hey everybody, welcome to What the Flick. Francis, Alonso, episode 2 of MTV's Scream. Bibbs is going to join us for these, but he's at Comic-Con this week. We are not.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. So this is episode 2. Hello, Emma. I have to say, I'm digging what this show is trying to do in terms of, you know, a slasher film transposed to a weekly series.
Yes.
I think if there's a place that I think it's maybe kind of falling short, the cast.
Yes, I sensed that in the first.
Because one of the when you watch it and you watch them doing this material, you realize that the first Scream movie, especially because I think a lot of those actors we either hadn't seen before or hadn't seen much of yet, were all such great kind of breakout on the cusp stars.
Yeah.
And look, I've seen every episode of the rebooted Degrassi, so like I know my TV teens.
Yeah.
This batch, not yet
much.
thrilling me. I mean, I'm giving them some time here, but I don't know, they're missing a certain something.
Especially the main character, Emma. I don't believe that she's actually distressed a lot of the time about it. I mean, I feel like she turns it on and off, and there's no middle balance. Like one minute she's okay, and then she's like distraught. You know what I mean? So there's no real middle balance. But it didn't take long for us to get our first "I just killed someone" selfie.
All right, guys, phone's down.
But the Brandon James gift put us on the map, Mr. B. I mean, we've got like 7 of the top 10 trending hashtags right now.
You know, maybe you should focus more on your studies and less on Lakewood's web buzz.
Who can resist the murder selfie?
Which is what the killer is counting on.
When that's how they
Yes,
sent it
right.
around. And the funny thing is about that, I was talking to Amir about it, our executive producer. I was like, that probably would happen in today's world because we did have that selfie that surfaced when it was some poor kid's grandmother just passed away and she took a selfie of her.
Oh, right,
whilst she was
right.
with her. I'm like, that's today's generation.
Yeah,
They
this
would
is
do
the
that.
next step. And I do admire the fact that they're really trying to keep this current. Like, I love that there's an entire character who is just there to do cereal.
Yes.
You know, it's like, okay, that's of the moment. Well done, you know.
Where I think it falls short, especially in this episode, is very similar to what the latter Scream started to do, is that every time someone is on their own, they try to create this dramatic suspense. I mean, sometimes people are just walking to the store. Like, you don't even, like, they're on their own. Like every time Emma, there was the one scene she was just locked up, and yes, someone was in the alley.
Right.
And then you get the kid who's going to meet his potential love story in the field.
And that was kind of a cool
yeah,
misdirect,
that was a
actually.
cool. That one was actually better because you felt like those two have got some chemistry. But it seems like every time Emma is on her own, something is going to happen, and that's what happened with the second and third Scream. I felt like in the first one, they used it sparingly. Like when someone was, they had the ability to make you scared when you were least expecting it, like the middle of the day.
Sure.
So with this, you can just tell when something's going to happen because usually it's at night. Usually they're on their own rather than just kind of having it once in a while, so that you're actually taken off guard by it.
But so we're digging deeper into the mystery here. Obviously, the whole Raymond James thing is becoming a bigger and bigger factor at play. I guess Emma does not yet know that her mother is Violet, the original final girl, but her father is the one
who's considered the only survivor, but again, like she keeps denying. Every time I'm waiting for her to explain it, she's like, I don't talk about that. I'm like, can you tell me what this is? I don't get it. Like, what it is? Did he leave them after, or was he considered to be a survivor?
It's very. I suspect that what they're building to it will be, and I could be totally wrong about this, but the shocking twist that her father is actually Raymond James.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. Well, that's what they're leading you to believe. It's part of the fun of Scream. Is they lead you to these part of the previous with the horror movies was they led you to obvious examples, and then between the movies they had obvious killers be there. Like when they had the 2 high school kids that were the first original killers, like you could have called that at the start, but you thought that's too obvious. No way is it going to be.
Yeah, that could totally be a misdirect, or it could just be like like it's such a red herring that it's true.
Yes,
you know
exactly.
So yeah, we'll see how that goes. I kind of like the Noah Riley relationship.
Yes, that's the best.
I don't care about Emma or the 2 guys who are vying for her affection, or about the mean girl and the teacher.
Yes. Noah, for me, is the standout character at the moment. Like, he's the best actor.
And they're giving him the best lines.
Yeah, he's giving him the best lines, and he's the one that obviously most people are starting to get a little bit curious about, like, why are you so interested in this? But he spins it very well. He's just like, I'm interested in the story. This is what happens.
And they set him up at the end of episode 1 of like, oh, something is going on here. Of course, our corpse this week is poor Audrey's girlfriend, Rachel. You know, And, it's like, wow, she's cyberbullied and a cutter. It's like, does she also have an eating disorder? I mean, like, it's the teen show trifecta. Yes. But, I like the fact that, the idea of, the horrible comments that Audrey, they roll off her back, but this girl's more sensitive to it. Yeah. I also was thinking when Violet, whatever her actual name is, when the coroner shows up, I was like, okay, if she's a good coroner, she's going to figure out that the body was moved. And she did indeed immediately pick up on that fact. So I was like, all right, okay, you're competent at your job. I like that in a show.
Not that she's maybe not just a good coroner, but she's not exactly a good mother. Her daughter just walks into a dead body. She's like, oh, I usually don't mind you coming here. I'm like, what? In my spare time, I like to go and look at bodies with my mom.
Well, look, my dad was a doctor, and you got used to sort of like, you would just kind of show up at the office sometimes. I didn't waltz into while he was examining somebody.
Especially these young kids that are her age, when she knows that she probably could be next. Like, she's one of the victims, you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's just installing
maybe a little bit of sensitivity right now would be the order of the day.
And I don't know if this is just me picky. I think this is about the 20th time I've talked about how much I was a fan of One Tree Hill from the earlier episodes. And they do it for me, like, when I heard there was going to be, like, basketball and sports involved, I was like, all right, good, that's actually a good storyline. Maybe we can pick up on the character who's trying to make it as a college player and believe him. It was the worst looking shot basketball game I've ever seen. It was just like, he would miss a shot and he'd look over at his girlfriend. I was like, oh my God, you need to watch. One Tree Hill was shot nearly like 5-10 years ago, and they did a far better job of trying to encompass a competitive game. Jesus.
Good call. Yeah. I do love that, and I think maybe we're going to get this every episode now, where towards the end of the show, at the end of the episode, there's going to be somebody talking about what's happening and how terrible it is, and there's going to be close-ups of all the potential, suspects.
Suspects to go through one by one.
Is it podcast lady? Is it sensitive boy who reads?
So what is her podcast? I mean, because
autopsy of a crime, anatomy of a crime, something like that.
Is it a real thing?
Well, no, but there's Serial, which was that true crime podcast that NPR did that everybody was raving about, and she even has that NPR modulation very well. And so, and of course, I think Serial was done after the fact. I don't know that you would send a podcaster to an unfolding case, but I buy it, and it does sort of plug into a thing that is real.
So what do you think? What are we excited to see come forth? Because all I can hope is that the characters start to develop a little bit more, and maybe, I don't know, if you mentioned a good point, maybe they're just not getting enough lines for us to grow towards them, because it seems like Noah and Emma are taking up a lot of the screen time, but Emma's not doing as good a job portraying what she thinks to be. She's vital. Like Sydney in the original Screams, I didn't think she was by all means a great actress, but she was very good at portraying how distressed she was at this. Like, I just don't think that Emma seems that distressed in her time away from the group, but then when she's with them, it's suddenly, oh my God, I was the one that caused this.
Yeah, I hope we get more Audrey and more Riley. I think they seem potentially interesting, and they seem to break out of the kind of standard mold that so many of these other characters are in.
Yeah.
They kind of feel like, good girl, bad girl, dumb jock, outsider guy, whatever. So, I hope they get to do more, or that they flesh out these sort of archetypal characters and turn them into something a little more interesting.
Yeah.
And then obviously there's the question of like, well, we're going to be running out of ancillary characters to kill off, and so like how many of the regulars are going to make it to the end of the season?
That's what I was thinking about as well, because like obviously I could have picked it. It was going to be unfortunately Rachel in the next one, because she wasn't in the first episode enough. That's how you pick it out. And you're like, who's not in it as much? I would actually be for one of the bigger characters dying off earlier, because then it will start to make us question, who's actually safe? Because at this moment, whenever one of them are actually like alone, they're not really going to die. They might get away with a few scrapes or thrown in a lake or something like that, but they won't be.
Yeah, I mean that's always a problem with most mainstream movies and TV shows. Like, you kind of know that, well, these characters aren't really going to come to any harm. Which is why when a show, that's why I think Game of Thrones got a lot of attention, because like, we'll kill off anybody.
Exactly.
When we were talking about True Detective this week, there was a possibility that one of the lead characters was going to die off like in the third episode. It was like, wow, that would be amazing. Oh, no, you didn't. Okay. Well, I forgive you, but it would have been really great if you would have killed him off immediately.
Exactly. That's weird about the way we watch television now, is we're like, would you have the guts to kill someone? Like, do you have the guts to kill someone that important early? And you got to give credit to a show that feels like they can continue without one of their main characters about it. And I think that at this point in this show, you don't really have anyone that you're attached to at the moment. So I guess this is a good time
They're
to
reasonably
do that.
expendable,
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
But I mean, you know, and it's not like this is just a contemporary thing. I mean, when Hitchcock kills off Janet Leigh in the first act of Psycho, that was like a big shocker, which is, in fact, inspired the killing off of Drew Barrymore and the subsequent, you know, folks in the Scream series up to you know, Bella Thorne in this one.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, and we did get our first Hannibal reference this week also.
They're dropping in a lot of references, right? Because they had The Walking Dead dropped in at one point. What was the one that you mentioned before that?
How to Get Away with Murder and Scandal. But again, these shows I mean, the Scream series has always been very sort of meta and very like you know, reference heavy. So that's, you know, they're carrying the torch.
The only thing that I'm definitely was one of the downfalls of this episode. I mean, I'm still enjoying it, but the teacher relationship you said, like, from the last episode, what I got is that he didn't want to be involved, and then all of a sudden he sees her eating some licorice, and he's like, I miss you. Yeah. Like, I want to get back. And I'm like, where did you suddenly realize that you weren't going to care about your morals around and suddenly wanted to get back?
Well, you know, he's thinking with his dick.
I was trying to put it politely, but that's exactly what I was thinking.
Even high school teachers will do that. But, you know, I'm sorry, Pacey and his English teacher did it much better.
Yeah.
So. All right, we're sticking with this thing. We're going to see where it all goes. But join us next week. We'll be back with more Scream, and Bibbs will be here too.